You're listening to Podcast PXN,
a video game podcast,
delivering a player experience news.
Let's go! What is up, guys, and welcome to Podcast PXN, episode 278. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I am joined over Discord. In a little while, he will join us, the Nintendo aficionado and hardcore casual artist extraordinaire, Roshan Warner, at Roro, and the host of Large Popcorn and video producer at the Gamer. I don't know why I wanted to say at the Gramer. At the Gamer, Christian Macias, at ISO Christian.
Who made that mess? You did, Kate.
Oh, no.
all I have to say.
Well, I'm glad the rest of it didn't play. Jesus. And the reformed Tarkov Teletubby and my fellow Spartan Gage Dempster at Gilbo Biggins.
Can you even be sure that that's me anymore? You can't confirm it.
Where in the world did Gage's wallet go now? All right. Thank you to everyone watching us live and participating in the chat. Kirik and Glenn, thank you. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on youtube.com/@podcastpxn and twitch.tv/podcastpxn as well. The topic of the show this week, guys, is video game prices. We're going to have a conversation about that. We had a bit of a news story last week that we're going to insert in here and talk about are these prices fair and what are they going to look like if someone decides to make their price a little higher. But let's go ahead and jump right into that right now. Video game prices. So the story from last week was, and we were about to go on like a long tear, and we're like, all right, this is like topic of the show material. So here it is. There is apparently hope from the game industry that Grand Theft Auto 6 could be priced up to $100 so that other companies could also raise their default prices as well. So we started off last week talking about this, and I think we were all kind of in a similar position on thinking that it's a bit of a slippery slope if you do this. However, I think it's an interesting question to beg. Should there be certain prices on certain games that are maybe higher because of their production value being higher? Christian, I think you were on the side of like, let's not make a game for 10 plus years and then pass that cost onto the consumer. Is that right?
Yeah, that I think about encapsulates it. I don't want to just start talking off the rip because I do have a couple of notes that I prepared for today's tots.
Sure.
So yeah, I think when we were talking last week, it was like if GTA is $100, right? One of the things that I cited is, well, like look at climate change, for example, when so much of the carbon footprint is like, well, we got to do something about this. Instead of going at the people, the rich folk that are using private jets and stuff and taxing those kinds of things, it's always, the consumer has to pay. And suddenly you start paying, extra couple of cents when you go to the grocery store because that, you're paying for like to buy a bag. And so I'm not doing as good of a job today as I did last week, I think, trying to emphasize that point. But like, yeah, the thing for me is like, why is it on us to have to pay more when, Rockstar chose to spend X amount of years and X amount of money building this very expensive thing, and why is that the justification, for why we have to pay more? And then Gage, I think, rebutted with kind of an interesting point too. And that's when Dan was like, "Cut us off. Let's hold it until next week."
Yeah, we were getting long, and I was like,
it was a good combo.
Yes, Gage, do you want to remind us on where you were at on that situation?
Yeah, I think my point is somewhat adjacent to Christian's, but not quite the same. In that, I'm not sure. I agree with not passing the but. First of all, with your climate analogy, I completely agree on that front. But I think it's a bit different with this situation we're in because I am okay with the concept of developers pricing their game not by the amount of time that went into it. I think that's completely irrelevant. I think they should be pricing their game based on the content available of said product. And I think with Rockstar, those two things can kind of get conflated because they're a developer that spends so much time on their games and also has so much content in their games. So I think sometimes people can think those two things are the same thing. But the difference with Rockstar is that in my mind, I think of them half as a video game company and half as like a tech company in terms of like they spend. I mean, I don't know this for sure. I'm just riffing. I'm kind of, I guess this is headcanon or theorizing or whatever, because I don't have any connections at Rockstar, obviously. But I feel like a lot of the time that they spend developing, say, Grand Theft Auto 6, for example, I'm not sure that the whole 10 years is spent specifically on content that is designed for GTA 6, rather than inventing technology that they will use in their future games, and also GTA 6. So, like, as an example, one of my theories for where Rockstar might be going next, I mean, there's been some leaks, there's been some rumors, but we don't know anything. Although I will say, when it comes to Rockstar, surprisingly, the most accurate leaks that come out for them seem to be really, really early when people disregard them, and then like 3 years later, it turns out they're real. It happened with Red Dead 2, it happened with GTA 6. But anyways, there's been a lot of like buzz going around about maybe they're doing a medieval game, and in my mind, like, I really think that holds water only because if you look at Rockstar's track record of, like, again, designing this crazy tech that is a huge leap forward for the industry, they like to reuse it whenever possible, right? So, like, when I think of Red Dead 2, I think of the crazy horse tech, and like, if you look at gameplay clips of, like, say, Far Cry 6 is a much more recent game where you can ride horses, and it looks night and day. It looks night and day. Like, Rockstar gets so much right in terms of technology, and I think that's where they spend a bulk of their development, is just creating these engine tools and stuff like that they can reuse and recycle. So, like, pricing your game based on development put into it, I don't think is a fair assessment, because they're not always doing it for the consumer. They're doing it for themselves to give themselves an edge on the competition, which they have held for like more than a decade now. So I think the conversation is interesting. I think I lean more on the side of I am okay with adaptive pricing based on the content at the end, like inside the end product that the consumer gets.
Yeah.
Which is a surprise to me, because that is the most business-minded Gage has ever been, viewing games as a product, as a technological product, akin to like something like an iPhone, a new iPhone feature costing the release of the new iPhone $100 to $200 more as a price, as opposed to like an art form, like, you know, a big budget movie comes out, like a new Star Wars, you're still paying the same price for the, you know, for admission. The only difference is, like, if the movie's filmed in IMAX, which sure, they had to leverage that technology, the cost of the ticket goes up only if you're watching it in the IMAX format,
Right?
not if you're watching it at the theaters, like a regular.
Yeah, I mean, to try and give myself like a little bit of breathing room here. I would like to say that I'm not necessarily jumping from the bleachers here. I'm saying I'm okay with the concept of it. I don't know. It is exactly a slippery slope, and I'm sure we'll get into the slippery slope once Dan says his piece. But I'm just, as a jumping off point from the conversation, I think I hear you. I absolutely hear you. Believe me, the video games as an art form is something that I think is an important concept to hold on to. But it's not the same. It's not a 1-to-1 comparison with movies. There is a lot more going on, and I think that, I don't know. I'm curious to see what you have to say, Dan.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, in the specific circumstance of Rockstar and GTA 6, they don't have to price it at $100 because they know this game's going to sell a ridiculous amount of copies. So I think that's where it comes into that becomes more of a nuanced conversation because Rockstar specifically doesn't have to do that. But like if, developer X, whoever,
EA.
says, yeah, EA, for instance, says that it took them 10 years to make, the next Battlefield game or something like that. Battlefield doesn't sell like Grand Theft Auto 6 numbers. So like, would that game warrant more a higher cost if that game is more fully feature set and has a massive campaign and all of the other things? And it's an interesting question that I don't know if I lean heavily on one side or the other. However, I will say that, if a developer sits down and makes an absolutely like technological masterpiece, a great campaign, like we're talking a lot of content, like best.
Let's
in the
use Red Dead
series.
Redemption 2 as example.
Right. And if they're doing all of those things, are they warranted to charge more? I feel like they are. And like the other thing we're not thinking about as well, if that game takes 10 years to make, for instance, and we're saying, well, don't take 10 years to make the game. Well, what if they made 2 games in that 10-year span? So you have a game that comes out in the first 5 years and then a second game that comes out in the next 5 years. Those games are both going to be $70 a piece, which are totals $140. So we're actually talking about $140 in a 10-year span versus $100. And I get that you have 2 different games, but like if that one game is more fully feature complete, it's checking all the boxes, it's hitting all the content, and I'm not just saying like, oh, we're going to release the next Battlefield. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like we're having like Gage is saying, Red Dead Redemption 2 level of content in a franchise that's never had that much content, if that makes sense.
I have to use a bad analogy again. None of these things are analogous because all these mediums are different, but I got to close Slack. Hold on, I had it open. I'm getting like work messages. Like a couple hundred years ago, I can't remember the period. It might have been up until like even like 18th, 19th century. But if you've seen what's that movie with Robin Williams, Dead Poet Society, there's a mention of this I think in that movie as well. They're in class, and one of the ways the textbook is telling you that a poem is good is that it meets these standards. It's approximately this length. It uses this kind of meter. It does all of these qualifiable things. Checks the boxes as Dan mentioned, and that was the barometer for whether or not a poem was good or not. I'm not saying this is a one-to-one, but for me that is a slippery slope to be like, well, the new Assassin's Creed game has a long campaign. You might not see all of it, but if it has a longer campaign, then it checks that box, and suddenly we start getting developers who are like, kind of playing that game and trying to feel that out, where things are costing more because it meets certain criteria that we've deemed worthy of, more money. And that kind of thing doesn't super slide with me, just on I don't know. That to me feels a little predatory or a little icky.
Now, I have a counterpoint for you. Is
Please.
that Ubisoft games? I want to use Ubisoft as an example because that's a great
Please.
example, and they will be. I think it's a coin toss between them and EA, which will be the first to abuse a price hike in the industry. So they're a great analogy / example.
I think it'd be EA. A new FIFA is $100.
For sure. I mean, yeah, I can see it being either of them.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. FC, yeah.
FC, yeah. Here's the thing, though. There is, and this episode is gonna sound like Gage is taking the side of big business, but I promise you that's not where I'm coming from. I feel like I've earned enough of a what's the term when you want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah.
Yes, to at least get the benefit of the doubt, because I've been very critical of these big corporations. But here's the thing: when it comes to Ubisoft specifically, they already overprice their games at full price. And what I mean by that is almost every single Ubisoft game that comes out within 30 days gets a significant 50% cut, because there's what the company wants to price the game at, and then there's what consumers actually pay for it. So they will release their game at full price to give the appearance that they are still a competent studio making AAA games, but they don't sell. They don't sell at full price, right? So there is an element, and I hate saying it because it's turned into a buzzword, but there is an element of the free market which will kind of somewhat balance things out in terms of Ubisoft can go ahead and charge $100 for the next Assassin's Creed game, but they're going to sell 50,000 units, or sorry, maybe 500,000 units within the first month, and then the next thing you're going to see is you're going to boot up GOG or Steam or whatever, and you're going to see that big 50% off banner. And that's because regardless of what these companies price their games at, there's the price that they price it at, and then there's the price that the consumers are actually willing to pay. And I think that is maybe not, that won't account for everything. That's not like this shield that will guard consumers from everything, but it will lessen the blow of if we do go down this path of price increases.
I'm so happy you brought up free market, actually, because it is a very nice segue into what my notes are, which is what I said last week is, actually, games are already $100. Companies have been getting away with it. Permission to speak for 3 minutes, Daniel?
Go for
you want to
it.
let me? Yeah. I mean, feel free to interrupt at any point. This is going to I have to do another analogy, and it circles around. Trust me. Okay. A couple of years ago, I was doing some after work school for SEO research and then UX design. And one of the things that one of these courses taught me was they used this example of the grocery store for psychological research. They were using this as an example to then talk about a landing page on a website or on a mobile app, and it made sense there. But I'm going to try to use gaming as our kind of anchor point, but through grocery stores. So when you go into a grocery store, usually the things that you see when entering one of the main entrances are things like either produce that's on one side, or some kind of floral department or something like that, like a little bakery or things that are pleasant to specifically senses. Either with produce, it's things like eyesight, and then with bakeries and floral stuff, it is eyesight as well, but also specifically it's the nose that they want to trigger. And what that tactic is called is priming. And they're wanting you to elicit some kind of positive response by seeing these kinds of things to get you into kind of the mindset of being in the grocery store and hopefully get you in a position where you are more likely to spend because you're in a better mood by seeing or experiencing these kinds of things. I'm going to circle it back to gaming just to keep things relevant for just a second. Is when you boot up a console, let's say, or a game even, you're going to see things like storefronts with the new game that just came out or a new skin that just launched in Fortnite, like Hatsune Miku is out, and that's very exciting. And these kinds of things are doing the same thing, and it's priming us to get in a good mood because we're seeing the new thing, and then maybe the new Call of Duty banner on our Xbox dashboard looks really fucking nice, and we want to resubscribe to Game Pass to play it. Things like that. We like to think of these things as marketing, and they are marketing, and they do work, but is also a psychological tactic called priming. I have to go on. When I was researching for my video on We Killed Gaming, I somehow ended up back at grocery stores. There was a study done by USC, and they did psychological research, how does psychology play into getting people to spend more money in grocery stores? And there was a lot of tactics in there, but the one that I remember the most was pay attention to where gift cards are placed and where cereal boxes are placed. the ones that you identify the most with, the ones that you consider like what is that Tony the Tiger cereal, Frosted Flakes, or Lucky Charms, or the Tricks, right? Yeah, Tricks, the rabbit one. These kinds of cereals are normally not at eye level, not at adult eye level. They're just below eye level, because who is at that eye level? It's kids. And it's kids who are gonna like pressure parents into spending more money. There's all kinds of other things that like they mentioned, like sales and all these like bundling, because you'll go in, you only need a couple of things, and you end up spending more than you need because you saw something that was like at the front of an aisle and it was a great deal, so you pick it up. Things like that. So all this to say, why talk so long about grocery fucking tactics is that is happening right now and has been happening in gaming for a minute, which is not early access in the way that like a game hasn't released yet, but paying $100 for 3-day early access. And the way you justify that is by playing the game of like, well, you're also getting the soundtrack, you're also getting the digital art book, things like that. And like, yes, I only needed to go to the grocery store for a couple of things, but now I'm leaving with cheese that I didn't need because, you know, it was on sale, right?
Right.
And if I can continue for just another second, is that like the way you can qualify that sort of predatory, in my opinion, tactic is like, it used to be 3 days, but now we're seeing the trend buckle a little bit, and now it's up to 5 days with Avowed. You can play 5 days early. And when these things release in early access for more money at the same time of embargo, yes, it's a marketing tactic, but it also kind of bleeds into that predatory tactic the same way it would like, yeah, Fortnite is free, but a kid who plays with the default skin every single time they go into a lobby is eventually going to get FOMO because they want the new skin too. And when you see other people already playing the game that just released, it actually hasn't released yet, you'll feel that FOMO too and are incentivized to spend that money as well.
Right.
I have a couple comments, but before I go into that, let me just read this part that directly ties into that. So yes, we're talking about the upgrade tier or the higher version of the game that's $100, which is also an interesting factor. I feel like Game Pass and PlayStation Plus have kind of factored into, more specifically Game Pass, because Microsoft seems to push this a bit more, but they have factored in more so to like push people into buying these upgrades. So you're paying like $20 to $30 for this upgrade to get all those things that you were just talking about, Christian, and early access as well. If you own Game Pass, because you don't have to buy the base game, obviously, because you get it with Game Pass. And
sure,
it's almost like they're using the upgrades as a way to recoup some of the costs that they're losing from the subscription services. And actually, I put in here, one of those examples would be Avowed that is coming up, which Avowed offers a $90 premium edition for just $22. Well, I said just, I'm reading Aaron Greenberg's tweet. He's the marketing guy. So, of course, he's saying for just $22, which includes 5 days early access, 2 sets of premium bonus skins for your companions, digital art book, and original soundtrack. So, to circle back for a minute here to what you were saying, Christian, I think my problem with what you were saying, I agree with most of what you were saying. My problem is I think it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think that for me, applies to every single one of these scenarios. For Avowed specifically, I think it does apply because I guess it depends on the eye of the beholder also, because I don't give a shit about the original soundtrack, digital art book, skins for my companions. I don't care about any of that shit. So literally, it would essentially be a $22 upgrade for 5 days early access in that circumstance. But like, there's been many other circumstances where I do buy the upgrade because the value to me is very much worth it, irregardless of the early access stuff. For example, Forza Horizon oftentimes does the digital upgrade where you can buy it but it includes both expansions because they usually have 2 expansions that come out with every Forza Horizon game. It includes both full expansions, which I know goes back to a whole conversation about whether we should buy season passes and all of that. But for me, as someone who loved that franchise, I was already bought into that ecosystem. I knew Playground Games was going to deliver great content. So I was okay upgrading, knowing I was saving money on the front end because those expansions cost more if you buy them separately.
Yeah, sorry. That's a good point. I completely forgot to when you're throwing in things like future content, that of course complicates it because that content will cost money anyway. Right. If you're saving money, then upfront, that for sure. Like I'm with you. I bought I guess it was called the deluxe edition of Alan Wake because I knew I was going to want to play the DLC coming for that game as well. But
that's a great example.
Interesting you say that the Avowed one doesn't count. I almost think of that one as kind of an X factor too because of Game Pass. As like you said, like you're paying, assuming most people have Game Pass, maybe they don't, but assuming that's the average Xbox user, then a $22 price tag for an upgrade is a little bit different than just paying $90 up front. For me, when I'm thinking of things like this, it's the Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft, where it was like,
right,
you get some skins, maybe like just cosmetics. You get the one mission, I think, from Jabba the Hutt if you buy that, and then after that was just early access, and like that was it. The Game Pass model certainly complicates things for sure.
Yeah, it's also tough too because it's like especially in my earlier years, like my 20s when I was buying games, like I would often think about like, and I know this is probably something I shouldn't really think about as a consumer, but I would often think about like maybe I should support these developers because I love these developers so much. And it's like, do I want to show my support in terms of my dollars to Obsidian, for instance, in this example, for Avowed, by buying this upgrade, even if I don't really give a shit about the content, because I want to show that I'm supporting that studio so they can keep making awesome games. And it is like a very fine line because it's like, I don't want to just, be another cog in the wheel of, paying big Microsoft more money, but it's like also there is like the developer side of things that, kind of gets mixed in there. I did think of sorry.
That is such a tough place to have to position yourself in though, because I don't think the onus is entirely on you. Like if it like it shouldn't be on you to like have to support Obsidian. I think the money up front should be enough. I don't think having to pay extra to like tell Microsoft that like, no, please keep making more Obsidian games should have to be on you.
Right.
And we know that's the case because, Tango was shut down, but like, I mean, these things are happening all over the place. I mean, not just Microsoft. I threw in 2 Xbox Game Studios games. I didn't mean to do that, but you know what I mean? Like these things are happening at PlayStation as well. And
yeah,
I think again, I'm just going to jump in here quick before you move to the next thing, Dan, too, is that video games are interesting, too, because while these big companies do obviously care about the amount of money that they're making off of certain games, when it comes to supporting a studio to make sure that they're able to keep making games, I'd almost say that, again, I could be wrong, but in video games, it seems like units sold is like the key factor that like these big corporations love to point to. Avowed sold this many units. Red Dead sold this many units on launch. It's always units, right? So like when I think about like you said, Dan, I want to support this studio. Should I get the extra add-on? Should I get this? Should I pay for the early access? I feel like just buying the game at the base edition, you're doing your part for the studio, and everything else is just add-ons.
But Game Pass does complicate that because you're not
It
technically
does, of course.
buying. Yeah.
Yes.
That's where my brain is like,
but also,
I don't know what to do there.
But also not the decision of those studios. Game Pass is way above their head. It has nothing to do with them, right? So Game Pass does complicate things, but it's almost like either it's complicating it for the sake of Microsoft, not really for the sake of those studios.
Right. Yeah, I almost like, because you're right, like so long developers and publishers like pointed to the amount of copies sold as like the that's the number. But like,
Right.
I wonder what the Microsoft team is looking at in terms of like what metrics teams have to hit to be successful, because
Right.
you know, Hi-Fi Rush sold, you know, I don't remember exact numbers, but like probably 1 million, 2 million copies sold. But like, what does it translate in terms of Game Pass growth? And like, I just don't know what that looks like from, you know, big boy Microsoft, like looking down at these developers like, oh, you guys only sold 500,000 copies, but then there's like 3 million people playing on Game Pass. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, are you guys ready to get crazy with this? Because I thought of
I know
something.
you're gonna bring up something, right? Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
Are you thinking of something else? Oh,
No, yeah, I interrupted you a second ago, and I'm
yes.
assuming that was going to be the crazy thing.
Yes. Okay. Are you guys? All right. Here we go. I literally thought of these while you were talking in your first segment, Christian. Like, they just popped in my head, and I was like, "This is crazy." But this would never happen. I just want to preface with this: this would never happen. But how would you guys be against? And this is in the world of the theoreticals, that the games release, or I'm sorry, the games get reviewed a month before the game releases, for instance, and the games are priced based on their review scores.
That is crazy.
Is that crazy?
Almost entirely unenforceable, but it's a very interesting idea. Like the Metacritic, like, and obviously not just, you can't just pick and choose review scores. Like,
right.
There would be, like, say, okay, so say this is, you know, ESRB teams up with Metacritic, right? And there's an official sort of aggregate.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, because then that kind of, again, you're right, this is totally impossible, so it almost seems silly to theorize about it, but it's fun, so why not? That would alleviate the whole check boxes thing, right? Because then Ubisoft could go ahead and release a bloated Assassin's Creed game that checks all the boxes, quote unquote.
Right.
But if it doesn't hit that review score, then oh well, too bad, doesn't matter.
Yep.
I wouldn't like that. I think, contrary to actually what Metacritic has been trending over the last 20 years, I still think review scores today are higher than they should be for a lot of games. I think we tend to give a lot of leeway. This is hot off the heels of me playing Metal Gear Survive and that game having a 60 average. That game fucking sucks. I wouldn't like that. That runs a little bit too close to me of, like, you know, China's social credit type beat. You know,
yeah, that's true.
Things
that's
like
fair.
that. It's like that seems a little icky for a struggling industry, dying industry.
And there is already genuine, real ethical concerns in game journalism, right? So then you add another element of incentivizing. Hey, come on down, come stay for a week at you know, in Santa Monica and play our game, and we hope you really, really like it. Also, here's a gift bag.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It does open the door, and that's good why we have these conversations, because when you first said that, Dan, I was like, oh shit, he's cooking. And then, you know, you just sit and you ruminate with it, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on, this kind of opens the door for some nefarious.
In a perfect world, it might work, but we don't live in a perfect world.
In a society that doesn't value corruption, it would work, but unfortunately, a lot of Western societies like money too much.
Stop. It's hitting too close to home.
There's no way home. All right, one more thing. Another slightly crazy, but nice.
Sorry. Oh, I see what you did there. Oh, wow. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
This one's slightly crazy, but it's also really crazy because publishers aren't going to do this. But they offer 2 versions of every game. One version is, you know, what we've dealt with in the past and still deal with today. The other version is a version that's priced a little higher, so let's say $20 higher, with no microtransactions.
The have and have not version.
And if they're, you know, the people who are in the have not version, they have to pay for the microtransactions. The people who paid the $20, they get all of that included.
Couldn't do that for live service games.
I know it's theoretical.
It's theoretical. I don't know. My gut reaction is that I don't like it just because of my, like I said, have and have not, where it's like this is the version for the poors, and this is the version for the people that can afford the real the full experience. It just rubs me the wrong way. I know you're coming at this
Right.
with
also
genuine, authentic intentions, but like that's my immediate reaction to that kind of.
But you could also argue that the normal version that has predatory microtransactions that still targets the same people that are buying the cheaper version of the game. A lot of people can't afford things and then end up buying them when they really shouldn't. This would alleviate them looking at a store and saying, I'm going to pay $30 for this bundle of skins or something. I don't know.
It's insane to me that we're in an era. This episode is so political. It's insane to me that we're in an era where we have to like theorize affordability about a hobby that like should just be something that people can pick up and not have to worry about. But here we are talking about it like it's groceries and fuel and housing. How can we really beat this video game affordability crisis that we have?
The economy of video games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Christian's right. We live in a live service age of video games, and that just throws too much of a curveball for that. I mean, does that and that's the thing? Would that mean that when you say microtransactions aren't in the have-not version, does that mean they get all that content? In which case, the developers are it's a huge loss for them, right? Because if you think you have teams working on content all the time,
I think
would you pay $90 for Forza Horizon 6 set in Japan and all the future cars and tracks that are released over the course of 1 to 2 years? You get them all for the cost of $90 up front. Would you do that?
I feel like is that not less than what it costs now?
I think they actually do that. The $100 version of Forza Horizon usually includes all future
content.
Yeah, and cars and such. Yeah. So it actually already is.
Our crazy hypotheticals are
are real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's also a case by case thing because like some games don't have like gameplay content as microtransactions or DLC or whatever you want to call it. Like Halo Infinite as an example, it strictly has armor customization options cost money. There's no gameplay items that cost money.
Right.
So
can I throw a Game Pass hypothetical curveball in here as a question?
Sure.
Current Game Pass model is everything Xbox published is included, and then they do partnership stuff, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. What if Game Pass was just the partner games, like that was the Game Pass library, and then Game Pass subscribers get an additional perk of like you get to buy games 10 to 15% off, the way like when a new game comes out on Steam and you get like the founders whatever pricing early, you know what I mean,
early access pricing.
Yeah.
There better be less predatory fucking microtransactions if they're gonna do that.
Well, sure, yeah, that's a separate problem, but like I don't know, I'm throwing that as like a thing of like when you were talking about like metrics, how does Microsoft measure success? Is it units sold or Game Pass subs, increase? The sorts of things that like I could never qualify. Those guys had to be so smart to like think about shit like that. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Very interesting indeed. Keurig says, well, consider this. A game can be considered art that encompasses visuals, music, and story, and art can be priceless.
Free games.
So then
try.
I think he's meaning the opposite though, right? If it's
Right,
priceless,
like they could
yeah.
charge whatever they want for it, right?
Right.
You could take that either way.
If Rockstar came to me and said that, I would say, fuck off.
And then you'd immediately buy GTA 6.
No,
So
but
this
I would wait like a weekend.
Right, to try and prove yourself.
Yeah.
So before we get off topic of the show, then, what's the most that we would pay for GTA 6?
$70.
I don't believe you.
I don't think
I'm calling your bluff. I do not believe you.
I don't believe that either.
$70.
I don't believe you.
I think we all hope it's $70 and want it to be $70, but I don't. If I have a gun to my head, someone asking me how much I would pay for GTA 6,
Just remove the gun. Remove the gun to your head analogy, and think of it as this game comes out. It gets all the reviews that we think it's going to get, and it does push the medium forward. What are you going to pay to experience that? Remove duress entirely. Just think of it purely from an entertainment standpoint.
Come over here, Dan, because let me tell you something, Dan.
Yep.
When a show that you like comes out on Netflix, what do? Do you resubscribe immediately and then pay month to month, or do you wait until most of the season is out and then sub for 1 month and then bounce out?
Well, it depends on the show. Depends
Is
on the
GTA
show.
just a show you like, or is it like?
Yeah.
This is the thing. This is the Rockstar equation.
We don't know. That game isn't fucking out yet.
So
We don't know, but for the
it's-
sake of the conversation, let's
Yeah.
assume that they keep their track record with how they have been for the last 20 years.
To go with your comment, Christian, if Stranger Things season 5 comes out tomorrow and they announce they're doing week to week, I'm subscribing to fucking Netflix immediately because I fucking love
That's
that
crazy.
show.
For Stranger Things.
Oh, fuck off. You have your shows you love. I love fucking season 4 was incredible. Did you watch season 4?
That's not a video game, Daniel.
Did you watch season 4?
No, because I thought that shit was ass at season 2.
It's clear you didn't watch season 4 because it was one of the best seasons of television ever created. It was fucking insane. Anyways, that's my point. It depends. It's case by case basis. So yeah, I think Grand Theft Auto 6 would fucking offer a lot more to me as a medium because I've loved everything minus GTA 4, which I know people on here will disagree with me with. But I think they've earned my trust at this point to where I'd probably give them fucking $150. That's insane.
Don't throw that rhetoric around. That's dangerous.
I'm just saying, you know.
That's
crazy.
That's an answer I wanted.
That
That is an
honest
answer that I
answer.
wanted.
Yeah.
Yes, that is an honest answer. And like I said, when I phrased my question, the game comes out, it gets the reviews that we think it all is going to get. So I'm not talking about the game comes out and you don't like it. That's a moot point. $150, that is a lot of money. But I appreciate the honest answer.
The only way I'm spending $90 to $100 on GTA 6 is if it launches alongside PlayStation 6 and it utilizes the new console to do stuff that the PS5 version of the game could not do. The only way. If it's $100 come fall, you guys can play that and I'll fucking enjoy the backlog for a bit. Those servers are going to be fucking broken anyway. It's not like we can play together.
I'm not jumping
playing
into online
online.
first. I could give a fuck about online.
Exactly.
In the same way that Red Dead 2 launched, I could give a fuck about online.
I'm just saying.
That's fair. I think I'm going to keep it in American just because, again, with the state of the world right now,
right. Yeah,
who knows what's going to happen. I'm going to say I would be willing to pay $100. I mean, I'm lying to myself. I would be willing to pay more. I know I would be. I would be probably willing to pay $120 American to play this game at launch.
Yeah.
That is what I would be willing to pay to play it.
Just thinking about.
You're gonna say.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh. You're gonna bend over and say, "Thank you, Rockstar."
I'm right. I booted up Red Dead. I booted up Red Dead 2 the other day. Huh?
Just making a poor joke. You can't buy games right now.
I can't buy games right now.
GTA 5 and Red Dead 2, the campaigns alone to me are worth full asking price. And then there's like whole other games on the back of that with GTA Online. So it's like,
when did RDR2 come out?
2018.
Yeah.
You want to know when I played it?
When?
2019.
It came out at the end of 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I played it in 2019.
Well, they don't put their games on sale that quickly, so I think you still paid full price for it, didn't you?
No, I paid $0. I borrowed it from a friend.
Okay.
Gage will have to do the translations here, but Kirik says he'd pay 189 Canadian or 199 Canadian for a gold edition, 259 Canadian for a collector's edition.
Are you listening to yourselves?
Ooh, I would. Okay, for collector's edition, I would easily pay.
Well,
I'm with him.
This is Canadian.
What are you going to collect? We don't even know what the
One-
fuck is in it. You're just saying collector's edition. You don't know what's in it. It's
This
a
is-
hypothetical. Well, there's nothing in the box yet.
Okay, hold on, before you get crazy.
Canadian.
Also, this is to have a good faith conversation. I will go back to how I phrased the question. The game comes out and it keeps the pattern that Rockstar has, which is that it is a quality release that
98.
pushes the bar forward.
Yeah.
189 Canadian is what? 120 American? 130?
I think so. Yeah, roughly.
Around. So Kirik and I have roughly the same answer for the standard edition of the game, I think, which means that Kirik is, as always, based.
180 USD for 250 Canadian for this supposed collector's edition, which you have no idea what it would include.
No, I think he said 189 Canadian for the standard edition.
Correct.
259
But
Canadian
for
for
the
the collector's
collectors.
edition. Right.
Yeah, that's what Christian was saying. He doesn't know what's in it, but
You're just saying the word collector's
He's
edition
just-
with nothing in it.
I am
just
theorizing.
phrasing- Yeah.
Yes. Dan, go ahead.
You get the map.
He's
They have
just-
the map in the collector's edition.
No, I'm not going to pay 259 for the game and a map.
He's projecting what
A steel book.
He's
Steel box.
projecting if there's something really cool in the collector's edition that it would be worth 259 to him. Is what he's saying.
I'm pretty sure I paid
Okay,
near
the
that
sentiment.
for the Ellie edition of The Last of Us Part 2. I'm
Yeah.
happy with that collector's edition. I'm happy with the statue, backpack, bracelet, bunch of lithographs and art books and vinyl. Like, absolutely. I'm fine with all of that.
It would include a woman of the night, of course. Kirik says.
Mm,
Nat-
1,000 Canadian.
It gives you a voucher.
Natalie says $150 is ridiculous, Dan. I'm sorry. $90 max. I'm sorry. I apologize. That's the way I feel.
Dan's
Lot
being
of money.
honest. He's being open and honest.
Yeah, exactly. All right. That was a very good conversation, lads. I knew I had to stop you guys last week because we would have never gotten out of there. Gage would have been still here talking about it because he wouldn't have made it to work. All right. Let's move into our PXN news of the week, guys. Is Xbox becoming Sega now? Are they becoming a third-party publisher? Maybe. Forza Horizon 5 is officially coming to PlayStation 5 this spring, and it will include crossplay on all platforms. They are also working on an update that will add more content to all versions of the game. So that is coming. And also we got the news that Age of Mythology and Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition are also coming to PlayStation 5 and also feature content parity across all platforms as well as crossplay support. Lots more Xbox games coming to PlayStation with no sign of slowing down here. I just get smiles out of both of you on.
No red lines. Halo Infinite coming soon.
I never said Halo Infinite won't come to PlayStation. I just said it's not going to be first.
Yeah,
Just
it
wanna make
won't come
that clear.
before MCC. I
Yes.
think that's incredibly safe and rational.
Yeah.
And I was just riding the high of having Guy just in the
You were
chat.
just loving it, yeah.
I was.
He loves being contrarian, even if he's armed with zero information on the topic.
The problem with Guy is you'll say something and then he'll be like, well, no, then this. And then you're like, well, no, Guy, that's not what I said. I wasn't saying that. Like,
And yet Guy's right.
yeah.
And yet he's right. He's always
Yeah.
right.
Shout out Apple.
So is Xbox becoming Sega? Is that what happened? Is that what's happening?
Is
Ask me again in like 7 years.
Okay.
would that be such a horrible fate for Xbox? I wonder. with the IP that they own. I feel like Sega has pretty limited demographic in most of the IP they have. Like it's okay, do you really like fighting games, and also do you really like Sonic? Like I don't know. I feel like Xbox would have maybe more success than Sega would if they went that route. But I think I think Dan, you and I agree for the most part. We have at least one more console on the way, and then
Yeah.
so if this Sega conversation happens, that's going to be a conversation for like 4 years from now, and not actually anything to worry about in the meantime. I don't think.
I think they're going to continue to merge Xbox and Windows to the point where I think our next Xbox is safe being, just an Xbox or whatever. But the one after that, I almost wonder if they're going to pivot to being more focused on the Xbox app on Windows, because for a long time that app has not been very good, but
It's still not very good.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But they continue to point to that as their future, essentially. And I wonder if they do transition their whole Xbox team to work on that on Windows and make it a great experience. Could that be what we see in the future, and have, maybe not dedicated Xbox devices, but maybe devices that are Windows based, but they boot straight into Xbox and you plug it in your TV. I don't know. Just trying
Almost
to,
like
yeah,
like blurring the lines between a home console and a small form factor PC that you just buy ready to ship from Xbox. Okay, I got
because
you.
even Phil's been making comments like, not wanting to close off like other stores like Steam and stuff like that. So it almost makes you feel like in the future they're going to try to merge the two to, you open something on Xbox and it goes to open Steam in your Steam library and play it that way. I don't know.
I think I had, because I used to, back when I was passionate and cared about games a lot more, I used to do up like prediction sheets for like every E3 and stuff like that with my friends. And I remember, I want to say it was like as early as like 2020, maybe 2019, that one of my wild predictions was Xbox will launch with Steam available. And like, we're slowly kind of getting to the place where that might be a reality. And I can't help but feel like that would be such a huge win for Xbox if they did go the direction that you're talking about, where they kind of, because I mean a console is just a PC that's limited in its function, right? So I think going in that direction of just having this not necessarily open source, but a more open system that is what is essentially a small form factor PC that can just be that any parent can just buy for their kid, and it'll run smoothly. I think you're right. I think that's a smart direction for them to go.
Christian.
I have a question it's not part of the news of the week.
Okay.
It's kind of a little bit related to the topic of the show, but I don't think it'll take too long. But I want to throw it out before I forget.
Throw it out.
It's more of a question for you, Dan, but Christian, please feel free to join in if you'd like.
No, fuck you.
What do we think the chances are that Rockstar has the next Xbox development kit right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Pretty high, eh?
Yeah.
If their target is 2026, then...
Well, we don't know that for sure, right? We only know that we saw the leaked slides from, 3 years ago now?
I would say
so
yes.
I was just curious if you guys were thinking about that, because I was pondering that the other day. And if they do have it, then I wonder...
I would argue that they probably have maybe not actual hardware for PS6, because that's probably still 2 years away, but I would argue they would at least have a pretty good idea what the PS6 is going to be as well.
Like
if you remember,
like a spec sheet.
Yeah.
Last year, Mark Cerny said that he's already been talking to developers about what they want for the next hardware. So yeah, maybe like a year and a half away from PlayStation having those out to developers, but Xbox, if they're targeting within the next 12 to 18 months, I wouldn't say it's outside the realm.
Indeed.
That's crazy. Timetables.
Crazy how quick time has gone after COVID. It's like,
stop, dude. Someone said like, oh, it was half a decade ago, and I was like, that is. Why would you say that out loud?
Yeah, it feels like it was last year.
Insane.
So was Kentucky.
Be back soon enough. All right. The other PXN news of the week item: Battlefield has returned. We got a reveal of the next Battlefield game, sort of, with public testing set to start this year on it. We got to look at Battlefield Labs, which was, let me just read it. Enlist.
It's the same thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Battlefield Labs is enlist for Battlefield Labs, and you may be called up to test and help shape the future of Battlefield games. So essentially, a testing program they're doing for Battlefield. Christian, what were you going to say?
I conflated Labs with Portal, which I know but I know they're bringing back Portal as well. Oops, what did I do?
That's coming. That's coming down the line here.
It's coming back to. Oh yeah. Oops. Go ahead.
You're fine.
I'll stop. So you texted us saying that you were waiting in line. I decided not to do so because I figured I'll just wait when it's closer to more of a final shape. Destiny reference.
Sure.
But did you end up signing up?
I did, yes. And yes, you are referring to the problems that they had, which everyone proceeded to break their website as soon as they announced this, which I was in the queue a few times and it was difficult to get through. It was like stuck a few times, but there was hundreds of thousands of people waiting to get in to the site, which is crazy.
It is really unfortunate that the servers for 3 Battlefield games have gone dark already, because I think you would have had so many more people jump back into like 4 or 3 or maybe even Hardline after this, because I think people want a proper Battlefield again, myself included.
Yeah, back to modern times, not future or past.
Yeah,
or alternate history or any of the nonsense they like.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel mixed on this because I really feel like the studio burned a lot of bridges with how they dealt with fans and how they responded to criticism. It kind of got swept in and muddled with culture and culture, politics, culture war stuff. But I really was not happy with the way that they addressed fans and how they assumed that the only people making criticisms of their games was because of these awful things, when really there was a lot of valid criticism for every game after Battlefield 1. And I'm torn because when I see people breaking the website to sign up for Battlefield, a part of me is kind of happy with that and is excited in terms of like, I'm excited that people are enthusiastic again, because Battlefield has been my favorite multiplayer franchise of anything. Like I love Halo, and that Halo 2 will always be my favorite game of all time. And when I think of my favorite game franchise as a whole, sure, it's probably Halo. But when it comes to like multiplayer experience, just judging multiplayer, I've always loved Battlefield. I've never had a game that's felt like playing Battlefield 4 and having a coordinated team, and you're yelling for friends to give you air cover, and a jet flies by and there's actually a person in that jet. It's not just a fucking kill streak. But then the other part of me is kind of like, I don't know, there's such a huge chip on my shoulder, and like with the state that Battlefield 2042 launched in, and how I try not to be an armchair developer, as Twitter likes to call it, but like, how could you think that launching that game in that state as a company, a video game company, was acceptable? I don't know. I'm of two minds with this. I'm split.
That's why I didn't sign up, because they've yet to prove themselves in recent memory for me. I'll just wait.
I think for me, in my eyes anyways, this is an indication that they've learned from that and they want the community's feedback, and that's why they want to put this out there for people to test it as they go along, give feedback, and make changes along with that. So that's why I signed up to kind of go along with that as well.
Skate's been doing that for like 2 years now, basically.
That's a really valid point. They've never done testing this early before, ever. So that is a legitimate change to their development process. So they deserve, and that's the thing, right? They deserve kudos for that. Like, I'm not entirely negative on it. I'm just kind of, I don't know.
Right. And I will also say I'm happy that they aren't doing some timing bullshit where you have to be the first 100,000 into the site or whatever. They said that that's not a factor at all, so you just have to sign up. So that's good. We also, they kind of rebranded, sort of. They did this thing where they're like, yeah, here's the Battlefield teams that are working on Battlefield, the next iteration of Battlefield, and they're calling the group of studios Battlefield Studios, which it's kind of funny. Halo Studios, Battlefield Studios. Apparently that's a thing now. Which is consisting of Criterion, DICE, Ripple Effect, and Motive, which are the exact same teams that worked on the last Battlefield 2042. It's just they're rebranding the group of them, I guess you'll call them. So that's a thing. Yeah. And yes, Christian, as you alluded to a little bit ago, Battlefield Portal is officially returning with classic maps coming back, and this is according to Tom Henderson. We had surprising confirming in the briefing that Portal will be making a return with the next Battlefield. Portal will be one of those slices tested under Battlefield Labs, and yeah, people who sign up will be under NDA, of course, yes. So that part of it is very cool. Bring back old stuff into Portal.
If I were God, I would do these. If I would do these three things: number one, world peace; number two, world hunger; and number three,
lots of money.
Bring back Bad Company 2.
Yeah,
with the servers. Yeah.
Well, we don't know what made it successful, Christian. That was EA's line back then. I don't know.
Can you believe that, dude? You believe that?
Yeah.
They didn't know what they had. They really didn't know what they had.
Literally, yeah. Okay, and then also from Tom Henderson, he also confirmed that a Battle Royale is going to be in the game as well, which we know Firestorm didn't do really that well, but we'll see what happens there. I think, yeah. I think they're under some pressure there to do that because of the landscape of the industry.
I agree with you.
They don't have to. They can just make a really solid multiplayer game.
But
they can just go all in on this one thing, you know?
The problem
You're saying they don't have to, but they might actually have to. They might be mandated by the
right.
The
I see what you mean. Yeah,
right.
Please do this. Yeah, no, okay, then let me rephrase. Fuck the C-suites. They don't have to make this mandate.
Right. And I think there is another problem where they're trying to cater to a wider audience because Battlefield's never had as wide of a net of an audience as Call of Duty or Fortnite, obviously.
But my thing is, like, you're not going to be Fortnite.
No,
and my other thing is, nobody fucking likes Warzone right now. It is, like, pitiful what Warzone is doing.
It is falling off in an insane way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's why they're trying to capitalize. Maybe Battlefield makes something original. If they do something original, then I'm down for it.
I you know what? I'm mostly with you, Dan. It's kind of like the whole Halo thing where it's like, it's so, the water is so muddy because yes, there's an overabundance of battle royale games, and you know what's another one gonna do? Probably not really anything. But in a vacuum, there's nothing wrong, and maybe even the gameplay mechanics lend itself nicely to a battle royale in the Halo universe. Same thing goes for Battlefield. Like if you do like a sort of like a Firestorm was such an interesting idea, but the problem is that they try to follow the formula too closely as opposed to leaning into what makes Battlefield kind of special. Like I feel like if you were to do a battle royale mode and kind of frame it around like, you know, a mass evacuation from a war zone and your soldiers that get left behind, and you're like, there is something there that you could do, and you could maybe play with the formula a little bit, and like as opposed to just having a circle closing in, which is the trap that Firestorm fell into, right? Like, oh, there's a wildfire and it's in the shape of a perfect circle and it's going to close in on the map. So it's like, okay, it's just Fortnite, but you're just doing something slightly different. It's like, what if you had kind of more of a Tarkov-like experience, not talking about looting, not talking about having bullet calibers, any of that stuff, but having the goal of the map to do certain things to allow you to escape, as opposed to just having the circle closed in and it's the same tired format. Like Battlefield could do something interesting, I think, with its gameplay mechanics and separate itself from the market. The problem is, will the C-suites and the people in charge allow that to happen? Probably not.
You know what? You just triggered an idea in my head when you were talking about that. Like, I know the time period wouldn't work because my idea I'm about to say is in the past. But like when I was watching those World War II documentaries, like I was really fascinated with that stuff. And you saying like, let's get something original. That makes me think of like, in World War II when the Soviets were pushing in on Germany and basically were surrounding Germany, like having the idea of like an enemy force like surrounding the map, pushing you in closer and closer, and like you can go out into that area, but then you have to fight a bunch of
deal with, maybe.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be awesome.
There you go. That's something like that, right? Like it's like you're behind enemy lines. The main, let's say you're playing as America, whatever. The rest of the American army has pulled out and you got left behind. And you're right. Like there's this closing wave of like AIs, and it's like you can run out into beyond the boundaries, but you're gonna get hounded by sniper fire and this, that, and the other. And maybe you can make a stand out there and stay in that zone longer. And you're totally right. Like there is something there that they could do. So my immediate reaction is kind of similar to Christian's, where it's like, yeah, my gut check is to do an eye roll and say, of course you're going to do Battle Royale. But there's a small part of my brain that's always hoping that maybe somebody at the studio can stand up and be like, you know what? If you guys want a Battle Royale so bad, let us do our version of this.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. That's a really cool idea. That's totally a cool idea. And I would love to see them incorporate AI and lean into like the old sort of Battlefield DNA and have these maps, because we already know from some of the leaks that we've gotten a while ago that they're going back down to 64 players. They're not doing the 128 thing, which is fine. But like, I also kind of like the theatrics of Battlefield, and so like I would never say no to having AI kind of cannon fodder fill in somehow in some game mode.
You want to see how the Battlefield Battle Royale opening cutscene starts?
What's that?
Sorry, I'm gonna break a stream for a second. I have it muted. That's how it starts. You see this? You guys watching?
But this you're doing this as a joke, but this sounds awesome. This sounds fucking awesome. Absolutely
incredible.
My normal take, I guess, to echo Gage, is that like when Rush was announced, people were like, "This isn't Battlefield. Battlefield is Conquest," and Rush is like a mainstay in the Battlefield franchise now. Because I think that mode is legitimately awesome. If they do it, you got to come with a way to shake up the battle royale formula using Battlefield's mechanics in an interesting way. So yeah. Until I see it, you're right. I should reserve reticence.
Speaking of seeing it, we got a few seconds, 14 to be precise, 14 seconds of a look at the next Battlefield game, which Charlie Intel nicely put together here in a tweet. So thank you to them. And this little footage clip has me excited about the destructibility returning, because at the end of the clip, the entire building starts to crumble and collapse. And that is what I love about Battlefield. I love the destruction. I love the vehicles. And the fact that they're going back to 64 players versus 128, I think is way better for me personally. I hate 128 mode on all the most recent Battlefields. So this is very exciting to me. Focus back on destructibility and stuff like that.
No.
Yes, Gage. No, go ahead.
This is what I was talking about though with the player count. I don't think they implemented 128 players well. I think that was kind of like to call back to our earlier conversation of doing this whole checkbox thing where it's like, oh, this Battlefield is now double the size, which means it's double the better, right? And it's like, well, no, I mean, you just kind of made the maps bigger and you made the vehicles have a lot more seats, and you were kind of hoping that would translate to more intensity, and it didn't really work. But here's why going back to 64 players isn't necessarily just a win. and I'm kind of nervous. If you guys are watching the GIF here,
Mhm.
you'll notice that the streets are packed with soldiers, and that's exciting, right? People are looking at this and they're thinking, "Oh, this is exciting! Look at all the chaos! Look at you running past your friends and all that stuff." That only works if you're able to, like, how do I word this? Like, if you have 64 players and everybody's like, every tank has 5 seats and every helicopter's got 5 seats, the gameplay that you're going to experience is not going to look like this. This is what I say when I talk about how I would like AI to, and when I say AI, I mean like the typical AI, not the new scary AI, like bots. We'll use the word bots, because like I'm looking at this gameplay footage and it looks incredible from what I'm seeing. But I'm thinking to myself, like, man, when I think of Battlefield 4, there wasn't a lot of scenarios where I had 8 teammates around me running up, pushing up an objective. It was
Right.
kind of like me and 2 other people, and 1 tank and 1 helicopter overhead. So like 64 players, I hear the enthusiasm and I know what people mean from that, because like Battlefield 2042 felt bloated, but I hope the map design actually allows for what we're seeing in this clip here, which is that, yeah, it is you and 12 other players running up on an objective, and it feels crazy and it feels chaotic. So like my off the dome take on this is like, I hope that they reduce the amount of seats and vehicles so that you don't have half of your team in 4 vehicles, and then
Yeah.
the fights don't feel like this. I just wanted to throw that out there with the whole player count thing, because like it's not necessarily just good or just bad. It depends on how well it's implemented in the gameplay.
And that's totally fair, but I am the antithesis of that, because I very much prefer the more intimate fights. I don't like having a bunch of players like this. Like what we're seeing here, I hope is not
You
what we
really
see. Yeah.
interesting.
Oh,
And
what?
maybe there's a happy middle ground
Right.
there, because like
Right.
Battlefield 2042, in my eyes, this footage here seems more representative of what Battlefield 2042 is than what this game will be in my eyes.
This to me looks like one of the major chokeholds from like any sort of like Middle East map, like main
Right.
street, where like you'd have like 2 or 3 main roads and you're pushing an objective that the enemy is holding down, and like that's where the chaos is. But like realistically, you spawn blocks and blocks away that you need like a vehicle to like get to or whatever. Like it looks like that kind of thing. I'm gonna throw out something here. I'm gonna correct myself and say I thought Battlefield servers were gone. They are not. They're shut down for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 generation. They are still up for PC and PS4, Xbox One, as well as PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. And Battlefield 4 is currently $2 on Steam. And do you know where I'm getting at with this?
I do. What are we doing this weekend?
Just say it, dude. Please say it. Please say it.
Dan, say it.
$2.
What are we doing this
$2.
weekend? Say it.
Battlefield?
Mm.
All right, the last bit here for Battlefield, they also said that it is, or I'm sorry, they didn't say this, but this was in, I think, a press release, that the next Battlefield is set to release this fiscal year, which is before April of 2026. And I believe Andrew Wilson, CEO of EA, also said that the date is very fluid right now, basically insinuating if GTA 6 comes out this
Yes.
fall, they ain't releasing this fall.
There's not a lot of conversation with this last point. That is exactly the only thing that he means when he says that. Does GTA 6 launch in fall of 2025?
Yeah.
We'll see you in 2026. Does it launch in April of 2026? We'll see you in 2025.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to, and I can't blame him.
It's smart, yes.
It's-
Rather than fucking release it to death like they did against, they released Titanfall 2 next to Battlefield.
They have a
That
history of
game.
cannibalizing their own
Yeah.
games, I think is what you're trying to say.
Yes.
And they need to learn their lesson, because Battlefield is a franchise that, I don't want to see go the way of Titanfall 2. I don't want to see Titanfall 2 go the way of Titanfall 2, for being completely honest. But yeah, this franchise needs its rebound, because it's not completely irrelevant yet. It hasn't completely died, but it also, you can't risk it. So
For sure.
they yeah, I know why they're playing safe, and I think that's totally smart to do.
All right, that was a beefy news of the week item, but that was good as well, lads. All right. Moving into the quick bites, Simu Liu is working with the rights holders to make the Sleeping Dogs movie happen. Let's go. Yeah, so there was turmoil, but now seemingly coming back because of Simu Liu. So I'm excited about this. I think Ro also is a big fan of Sleeping Dogs, so
It's a good game.
It's
I had fun.
seemingly happening.
incredible. And then we move into some darker quick bites. Wow, I didn't even mean for that to be a pun. Midnight Society has announced that they are closing down. They posted on Twitter, still Twitter. Today we are announcing Midnight Society will be closing its doors after 3 incredible years with an amazing team of over 55 developers contributing to our new IP, Dead Drop. We are actively seeking other game studios that would be interested in offering employment opportunities to our talented team members. If you know anyone who's hiring, please forward this message to them or DM us for direct intros. We express our sincere gratitude to each and every one of our community members and deeply sorry we were unable to reach our ultimate goal. Of course, this is Dr. Disrespect's and Robert Bowling's studio that they created to make this game with the fans, so to speak. They've been releasing builds slowly after the last couple years. And it was essentially going to be a blockchain game is what it seemed like. So probably not missing much from this being gone, but sad that people are losing their jobs, no less.
You still have your NFT?
No, I sold it. I sold it literally a year after I got it for triple my money. So
Some
Stocks.
yeah.
some
So
people might
it's-
call this a minor setback.
Yeah,
That's funny.
incredible.
I actually knew they were closing down because what's her name? Nancy Pelosi sold her NFT a month ago.
Oh my god. Jesus.
Just like she sold her Nvidia stock a week before it crashed.
Yeah.
Did she really? Oh,
She
shit.
did.
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. Someone needs to create a portfolio just based off of her.
Nope, there is.
You can. There's a website.
Pelosi
Oh.
tracker.
He does this all the
Mhm.
time.
Wow.
It's just like legit proof of insider trading, but nobody does anything about it. You can track all of her shit.
Government. All right.
Doge.
Yeah, Doge. Multiverses is also apparently shutting down. Another sad day. The final season will run from February 4th to May 30th. After that day, the game will be taken offline with the game only playable in an offline state. Kind of sad because a lot of people actually have been saying since this last update, the gameplay actually feels really good. Like they fine-tuned the speed of the gameplay, and I saw a lot of people praising them for that. So at least that's good so that people who want to play offline into the future can still play. But disappointing for this game to be shut down. I guess not hitting Warner's expectations.
Although I did see, maybe you mentioned this and I didn't listen. What's their company? WB
Yeah.
is looking into doing partnerships with games like Fortnite as a way to recoup some of their like sunk cost into that they spent in this game. So you might see more WB characters popping up in Fortnite in future collaborations.
Interesting. All right. As if Fortnite doesn't have enough fucking skins already. All right.
Godzilla's gone.
Yeah. We're getting a 30, 40, and 60 frame per second mode for Xbox Series X for Avowed has been announced. Yeah. I'm a big fan of those 40 FPS modes for better quality, but better frame rates as well. Interesting.
Yeah, the 40 sounds good for a game like an RPG, a solo RPG like this.
Yeah. I enjoyed it in Last of Us Part 2. That's what I played in on Last of Us Part 2. So, on PS5. All right. moving on from there, John Gonzalez, who was the lead writer on Fallout New Vegas, has officially rejoined Obsidian. He says in a response, "No, it's not Fallout New Vegas 2," which people responded with like, "It's actually Fallout New Vegas Part 2," or "It's Fallout spinoff, whatever." You know,
Fallout,
I hope that
Louisiana
happens.
or something. Yeah,
I would love that.
it's so like yeah, whatever. It's quick bites. Fuck it, whatever.
Fuck, fuck it.
You're so real for that.
And Xbox might be so real for ID at Xbox event that is announced for February 24th at IGN FanFest. Get a new look at a bunch of indie titles as well as games we've never seen before.
Hollow Knight Silk Song announcement?
Maybe? I kind of doubt it for that show, though.
You're right. That seems too small for it. Yeah.
Right. And then we this is on the rumor mill. This should have been in Street Meets. Oh well. Sony's next State of Play is reportedly coming next week. We're hearing possibly Ghost of Yotai is high on the list of possibilities, as well as Death Stranding 2 on the beach, and possibly upcoming live service games like Marathon and Fair Games. It's a lot of shit right there. That'd be a big show.
That is sizable for sure.
Yeah. And then our last quick bite. Nintendo has vowed to fight scalpers, saying it's ready to combat Switch 2 launch shortages and beat the scalpers, declaring we are making preparations. They're saying we will take all possible measures based on the experience we have accumulated to date regarding scalpers and the like. So, interesting. I don't know what they're going to do, but maybe they do something where you have to like connect your Nintendo account and prove that you've played games. I don't know. Maybe something like that.
This is going to be like when people on eBay posted pictures of their NVIDIA 50 series and it was like, read description. The description was like, this is a photo, so that the bot, that's scraping the online databases, buys a picture.
Right.
Yeah. Can I say something before, as a segue?
Yep.
You mentioned Avowed getting a 46 and 60 FPS mode.
Yes.
With that game releasing very soon, this will be your segue, Dan. If that game ends up doing really well, you might be right of like Gage could be running away with it early on already.
Mm. And
let's get the fantasy league, shall we?
And he is referring to our fantasy draft check-in here from Fantasy Critic. And we're going to jump right in here. And somehow, some way, for the second week in a row, Gage Dempster is in first place. This time with 31 points. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has launched to critical acclaim at an 89 for 19 points added to his total. Completely
insane.
Shocked. Yes.
Insane for that game to do as well as it did.
Yes.
This is the most points I think I've ever had in
I think so. Yeah. Props to props to Warhorse Studios for making a hell of a sequel. Because I thought that game was going to be low 70s again, maybe even 60. I think I predicted 69 actually, but yeah.
If Avowed gets above an 85, I will eat hot wings with Gage.
I don't think it will.
What's it at right now?
Avowed?
It's not even embargoed yet.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was thinking of something else. You guessed 70 on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
You wrote it down.
Oh, I did?
I did.
What did I say? I said something for 69. I don't remember, though.
I stopped writing after about halfway through, so it's probably one of the latter half.
That's all right. All right.
I can bring it up if you actually want to know. I have it ready to go.
I was just curious.
All right, Daniel, and you predicted for 69 Crimson Desert.
Oh, okay.
That's a safe 69.
Yeah.
That's a safe 69. I wouldn't sweat over that one.
Keurig says he's got to pick up his pre-order for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Hell yeah. And then he said, how many copies of Avowed do I have to buy for it to get to an 85%? I don't think that's going to influence it. I don't think so. All right, moving down the list here. Row Your Boat Games has not had anything released yet, so he's still at 0. Halo is Unreal. My publisher is at 12 points here after Sid Meier's Civilization 7 got an 82 Open Critic, which gives me 12 points. A little lower than I was hoping.
What a world where Civ 7 is lower than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I couldn't have
I
guessed
saw
that.
it.
Yeah.
You saw it, Pat?
I
You're
saw
so
it.
stupid, dude.
Jeez.
Mm.
And then we make it to Christian's team, Rose Devil, which has 16 points from Citizen Sleeper to Star Wars Vector. We had a ton of updates this week. 16 points. It's at an 86 Open Critic. So it goes as follows: Gage with 31, Christian with 16, me with 12, and Ro with 0. Stay tuned the rest of the year.
I would say Gage looking a little scary because Silk Song, Metal Gear, and Avowed are really strong hitters. But then you look at Half-Life 3 on there, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he can
I
still
don't
drop.
sweat too much.
He can still
I can
Yeah.
still drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait until like all the big showcases are done, and then I'll drop Half-Life 3. But if that hits,
Yeah.
if that comes out this year,
We're in
legendary,
trouble. Yeah.
legendary fantasy critic pick.
You might hit 300. Honestly.
40 points.
It might have.
That'd be sick.
All right, let's move into what you got for me. Dan, what you got for me? Well, Dan, I've got Lonely Mountain Snow Riders still. Played some more of that. We played Pummel Party this weekend. Had fun with that. Yeah, that's pretty much Halo Infinite. I'm a shit gamer right now. I admit to it. I have so much in the backlog. I just can't.
You keep saying this.
I know, but it's the stress. Literally, I'm so stressed from work right now that I come home and I just want to decompress. And I don't even. And then on the weekends, we're often playing. So it's like, yeah, I'm just struggling right now. So
that is the most valid thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have been supposed to been playing more Prey. I've decided to turn this into a work thing.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I like, oh, that's an excuse for me to like sit down and put some serious time into Prey. And I have, and it's fun, but I'm also like, I kind of ruined it because now it's playing that game is also work. Or like, I don't feel like playing it because it is work, right? And I'm like, I need to decompress a different way. So like, I've just done like some random races. But yeah, I did beat Citizen Sleeper 2. Currently my front runner for Game of the Year. That game is awesome in many ways, better than the first game. It also, in one very specific way, is I didn't like it as much as the first game because you never forget your first, I guess. I love that first game so much. That story that I've had for My Sleeper in 1 was really good, but number 2 is such a like hopeful light of like prose, PROSE. That writing really is like really special and touched me in some crazy ways. I think I ended up listening to Kind of Funny Games' review of Citizen Sleeper 2, and Andy said like every line a bar, like every paragraph a bar, and like that it was the case for Citizen Sleeper 2. Really, really strong writing. Loved it. And then I also have been playing Rift of the Necrodancer. I got it last week. Played it for work for this week. Now that it came out today, and that game is maybe the hardest rhythm game I've ever played. If you play Guitar Hero, you know what Rift of the Necrodancer is. It's 3 tracks, but different enemies have different like patterns. So if you hit an enemy on the track, it may move to a different track, or you might have to hit it twice, or maybe the enemy moves like off beat, or there's tons of different things, and when they're all happening at the same time, it becomes really, really hard. There has not been a single level in my 5 hours with the game that I have beaten on a harder difficulty than medium. I've tried, I can't do it. A lot of fun. Cool game. That's it.
Oh yeah. Gage, what you got?
Lonely Mountain Ski Riders, whatever it's called. I played some more of that with the boys this weekend. Very fun indie game. Sad to see that it's been dethroned as your game of the year because of Citizen Sleeper.
Hey, it's my number 2. My number 2. Silver looks good.
We played Party Pummel, which is fun.
Charles won.
Charles won.
That's crazy.
Shout out to Charles. He was on another level. I have not seen this man operate at this level of intensity and precision. And he because he didn't just accidentally win at the end. Like he was the first one to get a cup and it just stayed that way.
Dan beat
What you don't realize is he has like a beard down to here now because he's been playing for the last 3 months straight just that game to get better to beat us.
I think the funniest part is that he doesn't play this game and he just like comes on and like gets really high and is already like drunk and like still somehow beat us all.
Yeah.
It was incredible. The prowess on display was remarkable.
Mm-mm.
And aside from that, I'm in the same boat as you, Dan. Throughout the week, I get home and I'm not in the mood to play anything, and I don't play anything. And I'd like to play more. I'd really like to beat Abiotic Factor. I think that's we should consider that. We'll jump into a match, turn off all the survival stuff, and just go because it got a new update again today, and they're on track to do their 1.0 release this year. And I adore that game.
Update was yesterday. Today was the hotfix.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Hotfix. All right. Sweet. That was a big show, guys. Very good conversations. Thank you. As always. Thank you to Ro. He is out there enjoying mother time, and I do not blame him for that. I wish I was with my mother right now.
Come here.
I love my mother. All right. Moving out of the show, I can't hear the audio because I have to turn it off and on again, just like that. There we go. Thank you again to everyone joining us live on YouTube and Twitch, as well as podcast services everywhere, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Thank you, Ro. Thank you, Gage. Thank you, Christian. I went out of order and it just fucked with me. I am Daniel, and this has been Podcast PXN, and we are out. Much love, and keep on gaming.
Adios.
Adios mio.